Welcome back. All right, I want to talk about the Colorado Avalanche today. I have not done a video talking about the Avs in some time, as the playoffs are getting close, and we're talking a lot about St. Louis, the winning streak they're on. Dallas is trying to chase down Winnipeg. Winnipeg's going for the President's Trophy. Meanwhile, the Avs just look really quite good. And I don't think the Avalanche are going to be a team that are an easy out in the first round this year. So it'll be fascinating to see who they end up against. Odds are it'll probably be Dallas, but the next couple of weeks will tell us, won't it? Now, looking at their lineup, this has been completely revamped since the start of the season. Their center spot's completely revamped, and so is their goaltending. This is a team that saw weakness, and they fixed said weakness twice during the season, which is unusual. I think they've had 47 players in their lineup this season. Normally, that's something that's reserved for teams that are at the bottom of the league, having that much turnover with their roster. But Colorado's done it, and they've done it and kept their record really strong throughout. So looking at their lineup, and these line combinations are via daily faceoff, Artturi Lehkonen on the left side, 63 games, 27 goals, 16 assists, 43 points. He could score 30 goals this season, and nobody discusses it. Which tells you just how much he's overshadowed by other star players on this roster. And it's not like Lehkonen hasn't scored some big goals in the playoffs in the past, so I think he might deserve a little more conversation. McKinnon, 75 games, 30 goals, 80 assists, 110 points. McKinnon's remarkably consistent. He is in the running for MVP. And when you look at this forward group, it's a good forward group, but you can understand why the MVP discussion's there with McKinnon, because without McKinnon, this forward group definitely wouldn't have as much of a chance. We'll put it that way, winning a Stanley Cup. Jonathan Drouin, 42 games played, 11 goals, 26 assists, 37 points for him. Drouin, it is a matter of staying healthy, staying in the lineup. Same for Val Nichushkin. 37 games, 19 goals, 11 assists, 30 points. When in the lineup, Nichushkin is a fantastically talented forward who could push that 40-goal mark over a full schedule. It is that full schedule that's been elusive. And so he's got to do his best to make sure that nothing takes him out of these playoffs and that he is able to play all the way through, because that is a key thing that hurt the last couple of runs for Colorado, the fact that he did not finish the playoffs with the team. Brock Nelson, 12 games since arriving with the Islanders, 3 goals, 5 assists, 8 points. Nelson has looked good with the Colorado Avalanche, and considering how long he was in New York, it would have made sense if he had a harder time with that transition to a new franchise, but he's fit right in. Marty Necas has as well, 28 games, 10 goals, 15 assists, 25 points since arriving from Carolina. Does he score at the same rate as Rantanen did? No, but it's not that far off, and it's not a drop that, takes them out of contention or anything. Necas is a very good point producer. Jimmy Vesey has only played 4 games since being acquired, does not have a point as of yet, but he is a bottom 6 forward. He's still penciled into their lineup. Charlie Coyle, 2 assists in 12 games since arriving from Boston, but in a third-line role, Coyle honestly isn't hurting Colorado at this point in time, and while Nelson's fit in right away and he's productive, it's just taking Coyle a little bit longer, and sometimes it does. And then you got Ross Colton, 58 games, 15 goals, 13 assists, 28 points. Definitely cooled off since that fantastically hot start he had to the season, but Colton is a very good depth player on this roster. And then one of the better fourth lines, I think, in the NHL, Parker Kelly, 73 games, 7 goals, 11 assists, 18 points. Jack Drury, since arriving from Carolina, 26 games, 4 goals, 2 assists, 6 points. And Logan O'Connor, 73 games, 10 goals, 9 assists, 19 points. This is a really solid top 12, and this is a good roster that is going to give teams fits, especially with the amount of experience they have down the middle now with McKinnon, Nelson, Coyle. And Drury doesn't have the experience necessarily, but he plays like a veteran, and that is a really good 1 through 4 down the middle. On the blue line, they've definitely, I think, improved here as well. Devon Taves, 71 games, 8 goals, 31 assists, 39 points. You know what you're getting with Taves, and you know what you're getting with his partner, Makar. 75 games, 28 goals, 57 assists, 85 points. Makar's fantastic. Highly likely he wins the Norris Trophy this year. Werenski's in the hunt. Quinn Hughes would be in the hunt, but he's missed too many games at this point, I think, to end up getting that consideration. Definitely not a favorite. I think it's Makar's to lose at this point. Since joining the team, Ryan Lindgren, 14 games, 2 goals, 1 assist, 3 points. The points are not the story with Lindgren, though. It's defensive play, a little bit of physicality. I think Lindgren's been good. I think his play's been better in Colorado than it was with the New York Rangers, to be honest. Malinsky, 69 games, 3 goals, 9 assists, 12 points. I like Malinsky. Not a lot of offense there, but I do like Malinsky's overall game. Gerard, 70 games, 3 goals, 20 assists, 23 points. I've been complimentary of Gerard last season. See no reason not to be this season either. And Eric Johnson, since returning from Philadelphia, has played 7 games, no points. But it's not about points with Johnson. It's about trying to get him that second cup ring. And then in net, you've got Mackenzie Blackwood, 21-9-3, 919 save percentage since joining Colorado. And Wedgwood, 10-4-1, also a 919 save percentage. I've praised Wedgwood since he arrived in Colorado. And there you can see why. That this has definitely turned around the goaltending. In fact, I'm going to cheat a little bit. I'm going to go down to the exits here. Georgiev, at the time that he was traded from Colorado, was 8-7 with an 874 save percentage. Annunen, at the time he was traded by Colorado, was 6-4 with an 872 save percentage. The fact that they turned these two goaltenders into Blackwood and Wedgwood, nothing short of witchcraft. It's just, I don't know how you do that. Is an insane upgrade in net. Blackwood and Wedgwood, a legitimate goaltending tandem at the National Hockey League level. Now, their extras, Kiviranta not currently listed in the lineup. Kiviranta is a good goal scorer and a key goal scorer who gets goals in big games. Manson on the blue line, Miles Wood up front. Wood hasn't probably had the kind of season that he'd like to. And Gabe Landeskog. Landeskog, if he comes back, you're adding Landeskog likely to, I would think, the third line at this point. Think about it. If Gabe Landeskog came back and he's on their third line, that's a ridiculous amount of depth for this roster. Health is going to play a big role in whether or not Colorado goes far. If you see Drouin get hurt, if Nichushkin misses time, then you may very well be seeing a Colorado team that doesn't go nearly as far. But if they can keep those guys in the lineup, and if Landeskog can continue ramping things up and play even just a playoff game, he doesn't even have to play the whole game. I would compare it to Stamkos when he played, a couple of shifts for Tampa and couldn't go the rest of the game. And that inspired the Tampa Lightning and is part of the reason the Tampa Bay Lightning won the Stanley Cup that year. So I think Landeskog playing any amount of time for Colorado could be an inspiration for this team, and watch out if he does. Now, with the exits, I've talked about Georgiev and Annunen, so we'll move on to the others. Middlestad, when playing second-line center, that was seen as the weakness. That was seen as, I don't know if Middlestad fits there. Middlestad's had a rough time of it in Boston as well. So for Casey Middlestad, I think he's at a crossroads in his career at this offseason. Kovalenko, who was traded to San Jose. Ritchie, young prospect, former first-rounder. He's been traded out. Shillington, gone off the blue line. And, of course, the big name being Mikko Rantanen. Imagine at the start of the year if I had said, well, Colorado's going to lose Rantanen. They're going to trade both of their goaltenders, and they're still going to look really good. People would have thought it was crazy. In fact, I remember at the time when the rumors started that Rantanen might be on his way out of Colorado, there were plenty who said this is just, for clicks. It's not going to happen. Rantanen's not leaving Colorado, and then he did. DeHaan and Parssinen. Parssinen, of course, was an addition from Nashville, and then they traded him out as well. So there's been a lot of turnover for a team that sees itself as a contender, a team that we, I think, still agree is a contender for the Stanley Cup. Now, the trades that fixed what was wrong with this roster started November 30th, when they traded Annunen to Nashville, along with a 2025 sixth-round draft pick for Wedgwood. Wedgwood did not have these kinds of numbers with Nashville, nowhere near it. So that tells me that their pro scout did a good job there, or general manager said, hey, I know this guy can play. I've watched him in our division. Either way, adding Wedgwood was brilliant. Then December 9th, so a little over a week later, they moved the other goalie. So Georgiev's traded, Kovalenko's traded, a 2026 second-round draft pick as well as a 2025 fifth. And there's a lot of these draft picks that have conditional next to them. I'm not worried about that right now. Returning for Colorado, Giovanni Smith, who has been traded out since then. Blackwood, as well as the 2027 fifth-round draft pick. This is a win. While Kovalenko, there's still potential there that maybe he becomes a decent player for San Jose. This is a huge win for the Colorado Avalanche, and Blackwood signs an extension with the Avs as well, so the Avs give him a vote of confidence, and he's rewarding them with some really strong play and a great win-loss record as well. These goaltenders combined 31, 13, and 4. That's a pretty strong win-loss record. January 24th, in the three-way deal that saw Mikko Rantanen make his exit, the Avs added Natchez, they added Drury, they added a 2025 second and a 2026 fourth. So you're adding draft picks, you add Natchez, you add Drury, and you lose Rantanen. What this does is Natchez is a good winger, and Drury's still got some potential, and he plays down the middle. You've kind of strengthened your roster, added a little bit of depth. And then you look at the cap hit for Rantanen starting next year with Dallas. They don't have to worry about that either. It was a nice piece of business done by the Colorado Avalanche in that three-way trade. March the 1st, Parssinen and DeHaan are traded, along with a 2025 second round and a 2025 fourth round pick. So they just get picks and trade picks out. But coming to Colorado, Ryan Lindgren, Jimmy Vesey, and Hank Kempf, a prospect. So that's where Vesey comes in, that's where Lindgren comes in, and that's a depth move. And as I said before, I think Lindgren's been pretty good for Colorado since they picked him up. Sometimes a trade gets a guy going. Yes, a player can play really poorly or mediocre kind of hockey on one team, go to another, and all of a sudden they're playing pretty well. And that can be frustrating if you're a fan of the team where he was playing that mediocre hockey and wasn't playing well. Like, where was this guy then? But Lindgren's been pretty good since the trade. March 6th, so just before the deadline, they traded Callum Ritchie, and Shillington goes as well as a 2026 first-round pick and a 2028 third. So the Islanders did well in that trade, going to the Avalanche in the deal. Brock Nelson as well as William Dufour. Dufour not quite the prospect that he was, say, a couple years ago, but either way, you get a young player back, and Brock Nelson, as I mentioned before, has fit in seamlessly. So that kind of fixed the problem with their center group without giving up a whole lot along the way. Those first-round draft picks, yeah, they can hurt, but at this point in time, this team sees themselves as a Stanley Cup contender, and they were arming themselves to go against the Jets and the Stars. And so you've got to have that strength down the middle, that depth, and that goaltending. And that's what these moves did. March 7th, they traded Casey Mittelstadt, a 2025 second, and William Sellers to Boston in exchange for Coyle and a 2026 fifth. So Coyle has not been as productive with Colorado as he probably would like, but Mittelstadt's had a rough time with a Boston team that is just, they're going through some things right now. And so it has been interesting to see Coyle with Colorado. He's been prominent in the games. So the 2 assists in 12 games, I don't think tell the story here. Coyle's not going to get the opportunity to produce as well with Colorado as he did in Boston because he's not going to be as prominent a player. But still, a really solid addition for the Avalanche. Also on March the 7th, they traded Giovanni Smith to Philadelphia for Eric Johnson, which is a win. Giovanni Smith wasn't going to factor in for them down the stretch anyways with this forward group and even the extras. And so adding Eric Johnson on the blue line, that's fantastic, right? And then once Josh Manson's back and healthy, then Eric Johnson becomes very likely your 7th defenseman. That's not bad. That depth on the blue line is important come playoff time. And looking at how their numbers have improved, 3.32 goals for per game all season, which is 6th. Since January 1st, they've been 8th with 3.24 goals per game. However, that little bit of a drop in the offense is more than offset by the defensive numbers getting better, which I'll go ahead and say the change in goaltenders made a difference. So their goals against per game overall, 2.77 goals against per game, that's 10th. However, since the 1st of January, they're allowing 2.3 goals against per game. That's 3rd in the National Hockey League. So all of this discussion over who's going to finish first in the Central and win the President's Trophy is fun and all that. Meanwhile, Colorado's just lingering around and waiting for their chance to strike. And I really think the Avs could be quite dangerous once we start the playoffs on April 19th, especially when we look at the upcoming schedule. So tomorrow they're in Chicago, so I don't anticipate them losing against Chicago. Then on Thursday, they're in Columbus. Now, Columbus is fighting for their playoff lives, so that could be a tough game for Colorado. And then on Saturday, they're in St. Louis. They're going to want some measure of revenge against the Blues, especially since there's always a chance that they end up playing against the Blues, say in a second-round matchup, depending on how all the seedings work out. So you want to make sure that you beat the Blues in that one. Then on Tuesday, they're at home against Vegas. They may play Vegas in the playoffs if they get to the conference final. It could be Vegas they have to go through. And then on Thursday, they're at home against the Canucks. The Canucks and Avalanche have played some entertaining games so far this year. I guess a couple of entertaining games because they only play each other 3 times a year. But they're entertaining games. It should be a good warm-up for Colorado. Probably by then, Vancouver's mathematically eliminated from the playoffs. Then on Saturday the 12th, the Avalanche are in LA. So LA, I'm sure, will remember losing in Denver and try to get their measure of revenge when they're hosting Denver. And then the next night, Sunday the 13th, Colorado's regular season ends in Anaheim. So this is key because the playoffs start on April 19th. So if the Avalanche's series starts on the 19th, that's almost a full week off they've had before the playoffs start. And there's the possibility that their series could start on the 20th. We don't know the playoff schedule yet. This is a team that could have a full week before the playoffs start to get themselves ready, maybe to get some guys into the lineup and get healthy. They could be quite dangerous. So are we currently underestimating what the Avalanche might be able to do come playoff time? What do you think? Do you think this is a team that, nope, they're going to be out in the first round? Or do you think this is a team that's going to surprise people and maybe this fight between Dallas and Winnipeg doesn't matter in the end because maybe Colorado takes them both out in the playoffs? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below as always. Hit like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. Thank you guys so much for all your support as always. I will talk to you again soon.